destination for so many travelling to the Indonesian archipelago, and for hundreds of good reasons. The beaches are superb and the weather usually runs hand in hand. The food is varied, delicious and inexpensive. The people are for the most just lovely. The traffic is in a continual state of utter chaos, but that is the way of life on the island of Bali, and people are accustomed to that. Bali is part of the Coral Triangle, the area with the highest biodiversity of marine species. In this area alone, over 500 reef-building coral species can be found. For comparison, this is about 7 times as many as in the entire Caribbean Sea. There is a wide range of dive sites with high quality reefs, all with their own specific attractions. I have had the privilege of seeing the stunning landscape from the high definition camera fitted to a high-tech drone. It's new technology that gives a wonderful insight into what a wonderful country Bali is. The equipment is unsurpassed when it comes to gaining a bird's eye view, and we are currently investigating the feasibility of starting drone tours of Bali. That would give tourists the best possible expedition through a great land that few really get to see. Ayana Resort and Spa on the coast south of Kuta is just one of the spectacular establishments along the beautiful coast around the island of Bali. Most of the resort looks like a tropical landscaped botanical garden. There is a lake, rice paddies, edible fruit gardens and 11 swimming pools. The ambience conveys a Balinese fishing village along with the luxury of a 5-star resort. A spectacular resort along an equally spectacular coast. Ayana Resort consists of 78 luxury villas, each with a private pool. They are widely spread across the landscape grounds of the resort, and additionally there is a 290-room 5-star hotel. Various size rooms and villas are available, with the smallest being 48 square metres and the largest being a villa of 500 square metres. The coastline of Bali is dotted with superb resorts and beaches. Most are in hidden away places. When I asked our driver to go to many of them, he would say, "Oh, you can't get down to the beach there." Well, I had news for him, and that was we have the technology to see what others can't. The beaches seem to go forever. Tropical beaches in a paradise where the sea is crystal clear, and in most places they are devoid of human life. Blue Point is an area with the best views of a surf beach that I found on the island of Bali. Bali gets the full force of Southern Ocean swells direct from the Antarctic, with its southwest and southeast coasts being littered with surf spots. The area has the most dangerous and hollowest waves in this area. It has serious waves and it is for advanced surfers only. The area is known as the Balinese Pipeline. Many consider it the favourite surf spot on Bali to explore great and challenging waves. Filming surfers 100 metres offshore in big surf is one of the more challenging drone flying feats imaginable. Relying on technology to keep your camera ship in the air and having it return to base is a big ask. Once the filming mission is over, it's throttled down and back to base. Filming surfers at Padang was a challenge. I mastered it, but when I spotted some fishing boats off the coast at maximum range for the camera ship, I had to have a go. I needed to see if it was possible to get out there, film them and return safely. Filming the more sedate sections of the coastline provided some superb footage. This area was to be one where the Balinese way of life of old and the Bali way of life of the future revealed a unique way of life where fishing and gathering customs that had not changed for hundreds of years coexisted with modern development. This was a true Balinese culture, once again off the beaten track of the tourists, but our filming technology had meant we were able to see firsthand this wonderful culture. Jangkang or canoe is a small wooden Indonesian outrigger canoe. It is essentially of Balinese origin. This is a single outrigger system for sheltered waters, whereas the double outrigger canoes are designed for ocean going. It is a traditional fishing boat, and here it is being used as it has been for hundreds of years. Unlike much of what the tourists get to see in Bali, this is true Balinese culture at its very best. Tourism on the island of Bali is increasing at 10% per year, and huge resorts are being built to accommodate the influx of visitors. High quality facilities like this golf course and hotel development are enhancing the area. The Indonesian government is planning to construct a 2-runway international airport at Singaraja, North Bali, as well as a toll road from the capital city of Denpasar to Gilimanuk in West Bali. The government has a mid-term target of attracting 20 million foreign tourists by 2020 in the whole archipelago of Indonesia. As we take you on an aerial journey through parts of Indonesia, you will see why so many want to visit a country that has so much to offer. After enjoying the wonders of Bali, our next stop is the island of Java, only a few kilometres across the Bali Strait, an island where 50% of the 250 million people in Indonesia live. Indonesia is the largest island country in the world, and it sure was to be a land where there was a surprise around every corner, and a land populated by beautiful people living and producing some of the best fruits and vegetables in the world. Indonesia is a country where smiles are free and easy to get. It is a place where people are proud. proud that we show an interest in what they do. It is a land where culture and happiness go hand in hand. But most of all to me, it is a country where the people live off the land. Traditions go back hundreds of years. It is my kind of country and my kind of people. Our journey through Java began in the city of Jakarta, a city so vast it's not possible to see how big it is when flying into the international airport. One of the number of ports in Jakarta is where many of the island trading boats leave from to service some of the 14,000 islands that make up the Indonesian archipelago. The area has long been known as an important trade region since at least the 7th century. A valuable jewel in the crown of the spice trade has been colonised by many foreign powers drawn to its natural resources. Muslim traders were amongst the first, then the Dutch colonised the area from East Indonesia to eventually all of West Indonesia, but at times they were interrupted by Portuguese, French and British rule. Independence was secured after World War II, and since then the country has lived through many turbulent times. Indonesia is a land of contrasts, and no more so than Jakarta, where the magnificent shopping malls and skyscrapers are nestled amongst housing areas where the occupants are lucky if they have work, and even luckier if they earn more than the minimum wage. The building with a facade around the front is Indo Food Tower, 12 stories up with where my wife worked for many years. Now she is living in New Zealand, as far away from the hustle and bustle of big city life as you can get. More than 23 million people live in Greater Jakarta. It is a city that has embraced Western architecture but has held on to traditional Indonesian cuisine. Jakarta is a great place to start a tour of Java. From here, there are inexpensive flights to so many locations from either Soekarno-Hatta International Airport or Halim Perdana Kusuma Airport. Jakarta was once the de facto capital of the Dutch East Indies. The city currently houses important financial institutions such as the Bank of Indonesia, the Indonesian Stock Exchange, and the corporate headquarters of many Indonesian companies and multinational companies. Wisma 46 is the tallest building in Indonesia. It is 250 metres tall and is located in the Kota BNI Maybank complex in central Jakarta. The 48-storey office tower was completed in 1996. Central Jakarta houses most of the city's administrative and political centres. It is characterised by large parks and Dutch colonial buildings. Jakarta lies in a low, flat basin with an average elevation of only 8 metres above sea level. 40% of Jakarta, particularly in the northern areas, is below sea level. On this mission in central Jakarta, a drone was attacked by swallows protecting their part of the city. We knew that one bird strike would bring the drone down, so our flying mission was cut short. There are now about 800 skyscrapers and 82 high-rise buildings, that's 150 metres or plus, that have been built in Jakarta, and 52 more still under construction. Flying amongst the high-rise buildings of Jakarta was more difficult than flying in the mountains of Indonesia. We filmed one of the high-rise construction sites, an area where tower cranes dotted the skyline. Our mission was to film the construction of the new buildings and get a view of the precarious areas that construction workers must work in to get the job done. Indonesia is tipped to have the second most profitable construction market in Asia in the medium term. A view of the skyline in Jakarta shows that a significant number of tower cranes are working on major construction projects that are already underway in both the commercial and residential areas. I flew the drone high up close to this building under construction to get a bird's eye view of what was happening. Above and stretching out from the building were tower cranes lifting equipment up onto the floors under construction. One wrong move or an unpredicted gust of wind would have meant the end of the drone, so all care was taken. Barely visible from the ground and connected by nothing more than a radio signal, the drone controls felt almost insignificant amongst the huge task I was asking it to perform. The tourist industry in Indonesia is well catered for by the travel industry. Flights to many of the main tourist areas are priced at a fraction of what we pay in New Zealand. Our flight to Yogyakarta was an armchair ride over a series of volcanoes and mountains rising majestically from the rice fields of central Java. Our accommodation in Yogyakarta was the Grand Palace Hotel, an establishment that was aptly named. Staffed by pleasant and well-trained staff, we thought we were accommodated in a hotel 10 times the price of what we were paying. One of this area's most spectacular monuments is the Borobudur Temple. There is no reference to who built the temple or its intended purpose, but it was believed to have been built in the 9th century and abandoned around the 14th century, probably because of the decline of the Hindu kingdoms in Java and the Javanese conversion to Islam. The monument lay hidden for centuries under layers of volcanic ash and jungle growth. A few kilometres east of Borobudur is the smaller Mendut Temple. Built around early 9th century, Mendut is the oldest of 3 temples, including Parawa and Borobudur. In 1836 it was discovered as a ruins covered with bushes. The restoration of this temple was started in 1897 and wasn't finished until 1925. The Siwu temples are 8th century Mahayana Buddhist temples located 800 metres north of Prambanan in central Java. Siwu is actually the second largest Buddhist temple complex in Indonesia after Borobudur. These temples are amazing to see on film, but in reality the sheer awesomeness of them is almost impossible to comprehend. The temple was the largest Buddhist temple built in the Prambanan Plain region. It predated the nearby Prambanan Shivayist temple by over 70 years and predates Borobudur by 37 years. Although local Javanese knew of the existence of the temple, it was not until it attracted international attention early in the 19th century. In 1811, during Britain's short-lived occupation of the Dutch East Indies, Colin Mackenzie, a surveyor in the service of Sir Thomas Stanford Raffles, came upon the temples by chance. Although Sir Thomas subsequently commissioned a full survey on the ruins, they remained neglected for decades. Dutch residents carried off sculptures as garden ornaments and native villagers used the foundation stones for construction materials. Since much of the original stonework has been stolen and reused at remote construction sites, restoration was hampered considerably. Given the scale of the temple complex, the government decided to rebuild shrines only if at least 75% of their original masonry was available. Most of the smaller shrines are now visible only in their foundations, with no plans for their reconstruction. Candi Prambanan or Candi Rara Jongarang is a 9th century Hindu temple compound in central Java, Indonesia. The temple compound is located approximately 17 kilometres northeast of the city of Yogyakarta on the boundary between central Java and Yogyakarta provinces. This temple compound, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is the largest Hindu temple site in Indonesia and one of the biggest in Southeast Asia. The temple compound is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's the largest Hindu temple site in all of Indonesia and one of the biggest in Southeast Asia. It is characterized by its tall and pointed architecture, typical of Hindu temple architecture, and by the towering 47-metre high central building inside a large complex of individual temples. As much as I was amazed by the temples near Yogyakarta, I was looking for what I call the real Indonesia. I was looking for the people of the land, and with our guide and good friend Nori Nori and our driver, we headed out to Magelang, about an hour's drive north of Yogyakarta. If there is one thing that makes Indonesia the unique place it is, then that must be its food and the people that are native to this beautiful country. Spices are a big part of their lives and have been for thousands of years. The availability and knowledge of spices that have been passed down through the generations of Indonesians was why it was on the route of the spice traders and the often violent history in the past. This was Indonesian food culture at its very best. This was traditional and had no commercial twist to it. Like the rice industry in this country, the food was being prepared as it had been done for hundreds of years. No electricity and no recipe books.
To be honest, it's quite my kind of cooking. But the hospitality these people show and the living off the land way that they live is you know, something close to my heart. And the produce they've got is all grown by themselves. They buy very little in, and what they produce, in this case it's a wedding. They're waiting, there's a wedding on this weekend, so they're doing all the pre-cooking before that. And look, some of the food I'll just show you around and you just won't believe how good it looks and how good it smells. And the other thing you can't see here, it's about 40 degrees, but it doesn't seem to flutter them at all.
The knowledge of utilising what they had and turning that into what would be, no doubt, a feast of epic proportions was awesome to see and smell. We were fortunate that our guide also had a profound knowledge of the vegetables, fruits and spices so readily available. This fruit is named melinjo to make melinjo cracker, as like you see here. Traditional from Asia and Indonesia. This is the procedure how to skin melinjo, and the skin we can use for vegetables. This is star fruits. From when they are little, we must cover the fruit for about 1 month until it is ready to eat. If we don't cover, there will be a lot of bugs come into the inside and we can't eat the fruit. When the colour becomes yellow, it means
truly
it's ready
living off
to
the land. They are just amazing how well they adapt to their countryside, how well they utilise what they have here. And you know, one thing at the end of the day, you see the old lady here gave us all that fruit. She didn't know that we were going to pay for it. And you know, it's just like it all through Indonesia. The people are beautiful. You know, that fruit was valuable because that's why each one was wrapped up in plastic, because they were going to get that to perfection and then take it to the market and sell it. But when we come along and showed interest in it, they ended up giving it to us. And then the ice cream salesman went past, so we called him and got them all an ice cream, as well as giving them a bit of money for their fruit. And everyone's happy. But that's Indonesia.
Our guide in this area, Nori Nori, lived near Magelang. He worked in New Zealand in the horticultural industry in Hawke's Bay, where I lived. We'd got to know each other, and now he was able to take us into what I passionately call the real Indonesia. We travelled out to where Nori Nori lived near Magelang to meet his family. Like a lot of the families I had met on our travels in this country, our welcome was warm and sincere. I had often wondered where peanuts grew and how they grew. I was soon to find out. I was fortunate in having Nori Nori for a guide. This was his part of the country and he knew where I wanted to go to find all the different crops that grew in this area.
Well, if you didn't know where peanuts come from like me, you do now. Those are a root vegetable, as you can see, and they're grown here amongst chilies, tobacco, and they're pretty prolific on the ground by the look of it. And that's 2 rows through there. Yeah.
It is widely believed that peanuts were brought to Indonesia by Spanish explorers. The seeds were carried from Mexico via the Philippines and planted across the country from Sumatra to Java and Sulawesi. Peanuts became farmers' favourite crop because they were easy to grow and fetched a good price at market. This is the flower of the banana tree. This flower will blossom first, and then from the inside the little bananas will still keep growing to make baby banana. After all the flower becomes a bunch of bananas, the growth will stop and the banana bud gets old.
Terus tapi setelah ini tua dia nggak bisa lagi berbuah, habis buahnya.
The banana flower is a flower of the banana plant and is native to the Andes mountains of Colombia. The banana flower is large, dark purple red blossom that grows from the end of the bunch of bananas. When you open the inside, you see all the small flowers that will turn into bananas. The flavour is a little starchy and bitter and is normally eaten as a complement to a dish in Indonesia. The bananas continue growing out of the flower as it extends down the stem.
This is a cacao tree, which is what we get the cocoa from. But it's a really interesting story behind it, because for many years the natives didn't believe that they could eat the fruit until, not the fruit itself, but the seeds. They didn't think they were edible. And what happened was they saw monkeys taking them away and burying them. And what that did, it let the fruit ferment. The fruit fermented around the seeds, and then the seeds become edible. So the monkeys taught the humans that the seeds in there were edible, and that is what cocoa comes from. Now no, this is a natural plant. It's not planted here.
Ini tanaman coklat.
Ditanam,
dibudidayakan, dan ini mungkin udah hampir 5 tahun ini umurnya. Ini coklat, kalau belum matang dia masih hijau, matangnya kuning. Dan coklat ada dua.
These are chocolate pods. We plant these and we grow them, and this tree is about 5 years old.
And do you think they're a different variety?
Think different, only the colour, but the same taste.
This is a cacao tree, which is what we get the cocoa from. But it's a really interesting story behind it, because for many years the natives didn't believe that they could eat the fruit until, not the fruit itself, but the seeds. They didn't think they were edible. And what happened was they saw monkeys taking them away and burying them. And what that did, it let the fruit ferment. The fruit fermented around the seeds, and then the seeds become edible. So the monkeys taught the humans that the seeds in there were edible, and that is what cocoa comes from. So there you have it, that's a cocoa tree. It's not called cocoa, I don't know how it got the name, we'll have to find that out, but it's called a cacao. But that is where chocolate comes from. And it's grown commercially right throughout the Asian area, and in Indonesia and the Philippines. But if it wasn't for that tree, we would not have chocolate.
We were heading up towards Mount Sumbing from Magalan. It was proving to be a slow trip with so much to see off the tourist track. My kind of country. The wonderful engineering of the land and the dedicated workmanship that resulted in the superb terraced gardens was a sight to be seen. These terraces were originally hacked from thick jungle, and from what had been non-productive land was now providing work and food for many of the locals. I have always been interested in foods that grow wild, and up here I was treated to a surprise around every corner. Here we found coffee growing wild alongside the road. And we open, there is taste, and we can eat this. Sweet. Bean of coffee. The skin is rubbish.
So those are coffee beans.
Yeah, kopi.
So those are what your coffee comes from. Okay, so it's not the fruit itself as much, but it's the pip inside.
When we came across this guy climbing coconut trees with bamboo containers, I had no idea what he was doing. Whatever it was, I had to find out, and of course Nori knew what it was all about. Coconut sugar, also referred to as palm sugar, coconut palm sugar or coconut crystals, is a sugar produced from the sap of cut flower buds of the coconut tree. Coconut sugar has been used as a traditional sweetener for thousands of years in Asia.
The strength that must take is just incredible. You try it yourself one day and I think you'll see what I mean.
To harvest the sugar, it starts with harvesting or tapping the blossoms of the coconut tree. Farmers make a cut on the flower and the sap starts to flow from the cut. Then the sap is collected in bamboo containers.
And honestly, the reality of climbing that tree, the strength that's required, well, comparing it to the likes of a normal person like me, it's almost superhuman. It really is.
Coconut production plays an important role in the national economy of Indonesia. According to figures published in December 2009 by the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, it is the world's second largest producer of coconuts, producing 15 million tonnes in 2009. Coconuts have so many uses in Indonesia, but the main ones are all milk and nectar from the coconut meat, coconut water from inside the coconut, and the husks and shell are made into bowls and utensils or used as a cooking fuel. As we travel up the mountain, the altitude and temperature change allows different crops to be grown. Here it was mushrooms. When I first came to Indonesia, I was surprised to see so little machinery used in the areas where they grow so much food. The answer was logical. Machinery would replace people, and where would they get a job? Cattle are used for cultivating. It may be slow, but it is a tried and proven method that requires no expensive fuel. They are an important asset for smallholders. The water buffalo is one of the most important assets to those who cultivate the land. At least 130 million domestic water buffalo exist, and more human beings depend on them than any other domestic animal. They are especially suitable for tilling rice fields, and their milk is richer in fat and protein than that of dairy cattle. The owners of water buffalo treat their animals as one of the family. They are so important to them. After the work and the rice paddies is finished, the owner takes his team along with the calves to a water canal for a wash. This is just part of the respect the owners show to their precious team. An owner with a dedicated team is held in high regard in Indonesia. This cow had her calf with her and would go to any length to protect it. The cameraman stood his ground. His life amongst wild animals told him she would back off, probably.
Don't try that at home, okay? I know animals, but what I know better is I know animal handlers, and I could tell the way he was reacting that there's about a 90% chance that I was safe. Thank you very much.
Water buffalo were domesticated in India about 5,000 years ago and China about 4,000 years ago. More than 95% of the world population of water buffalo are found in Asia, including both river and swamp types. Well-trained water buffalo are the best way for the rice farmers to cultivate their fields. As much as Indonesia is known for great tourist destinations, I was keen to get to the heart of the country. My interest was to find the people of the land, and our guide Nori Nori had brought us to the right places. Before we came into this region, I had suggested we go shopping and buy some things we could give away as gifts. What I didn't know was how much they would be appreciated and how many times it would bring tears to my eyes just to see the gratitude those people showed. You may think that in making this documentary on Indonesia, we would have shown you all the great tourist attractions in this amazing country. But my instruction to our guides were mostly don't take me to tourist locations. Take me where the real people live and work. I want to see the great people who work the land. I want to encourage people to visit the areas off the beaten track. Places where a gift worth no more than a few rupiah can bring a smile to the face of a real Indonesian. A smile that stays with you for life.
What's happening here, this is basically a nursery. The seeds are planted in here, and the rice plants are started off in here. And this guy's harvesting them, and then they'll get broken up into single plants and planted in spaces in the ground. And when they plant them, they're in water. And a lot of the reason they're in water is it's to prevent bugs and weeds and things like that. That's there. Instead of us, we would use insecticides for a lot of that, or cultivation. They don't. They fill the rice paddy with water, and then they plant these out until they've been in there for about, I think it's about a month or 6 weeks or so, or longer, until they start growing properly and they start covering the ground, and that stops the light getting in, but the water kills a lot of the pests, whether it be bugs, disease, or weeds. So that's what starts out from a grain of rice into the huge paddies that you will see throughout Indonesia.
These rice paddies reflect the ingenuity, determination and capabilities of the Indonesian rice farmers. They are intricately designed and built. The water levels at one end of each paddy must be exactly the same at the other end, so they can use the water to aid the cultivation and eventually the harvest of the crop.
Well, this is the Indonesian high country, and this is the rice fields of Indonesia. And a more beautiful place I can hardly imagine. And one thing that we do get up here is people are so friendly. Smiles are free, and unlike New Zealand, everybody you talk to, everybody you take a photograph of or take a video of, they want to smile. But I'll take you up in the air and show you some of this country, and this is just amazing. It just blows me away, it really does. The noise you can hear in the background, it's a baboon. One thing you get in Indonesia is noise pollution. Wherever you go, there is noise. So as a filmmaker, you've just got to get used to that. But time to go flying.
Rice paddies have been created from the flatlands, or where necessity decreed, on the side of a mountain and all the land in between. Hewn from dense jungle, each paddy has the hallmarks of its creator, sometimes going back 1,000 years or more. On our trip to Mount Sumbing in the Joglio area, we were treated to some incredible sights. Rice paddies hewn from the sides of the hills that were planned meticulously and dug from the jungle with nothing but hand tools and determination. The ability of the farmers in this area to produce from such difficult country was nothing short of incredible. The utilisation of the water resource, where farmers use no power or motors to pump water, but instead rely on gravity and sufficient rainfall, is a tribute to the tenacity and ability of the farmers. They are incredibly adept at making water do what they want it to do. This was Indonesia at its very best. This is a country that hard-working Indonesian people have created from the jungle. Most of all, it was a kind of country, albeit off the beaten track, that I wanted to see, and what better way to see it than from the air. The island of Java is dotted with volcanoes. Mount Sumbing can be seen in the distance. There are many tourist attractions in this country, but to me, none are better than the very country we are flying over now. One of the advantages for a tourist in these areas is that very few tourists come here. The locals here are proud of what they do, and so they should be. They are sociable people and they welcome guests who show an interest in their way of life. They expect no money from you, but when you do give a little, their reaction is unforgettable. The victories that have been won from the jungles of Java have been hard won by the people of the land. If you want to learn the culture of this beautiful country, come to these areas. Often, many of these wonderful creations have been crafted by many, many generations of families over hundreds of years. These areas have seen many wars and many have been ruled by countries most of the Javanese people have never seen. They have been ruled by those who enslaved them, and they have been ruled by dictators, yet they have endured to create this wonderful paradise. Knowing the correct time to harvest rice is crucial to stop loss from either birds, rats, insects, and degrading when the rice seed shatters. Harvesting at the right time ensures good grain quality and the best possible prices. When rice reaches maturity, it is cut with simple hand tools like sickles and knives. This takes about 40 to 80 hours per hectare. Once it is cut and stacked, the workers then begin to thrash the rice stubble out in the rice paddies. It is hot and hard work, often done by women. This day it was close to 40 degrees. Many of the methods used in the rice industry have not changed for 1,000 years. The rice is threshed over a sheet of canvas. This releases the rice seeds from the plant and it remains on the canvas, and the rice stubble is then set aside. Often the stubble is used for stock food or burnt. This was the first time we came across a rice thrashing machine in Java. Mechanisation may be considered good, but in this country it would take away too many jobs.
So that's the rice that comes in after the harvest, and that's where rice comes from. It's basically like a seed on a grass or a flower or anything like that. It's a seed that is actually the rice. Now a lot of people get confused by seeing it growing in water and think that it grows in the roots of the rice plant, but it doesn't. And now what we're seeing here is the first mechanical machine that I've seen in the rice industry since I've been travelling through Indonesia. It's what he's doing. Instead of thrashing it by hand, he puts it through that, and that thrashes the seed out of it.
The work on the thrashing machine is hot, dusty and noisy. Most of the crew are women. The baskets of rice, as they come out of the thrashing machine, weigh over 30 kilos. Once the rice grain is thrashed, the crew take the unhulled rice, that's the rice with the husk still attached, and start tossing it to remove the remaining rice straw and any loose hulls. This process is called winnowing. The growing time for rice is between 110 and 136 days. The rice is thrashed as soon as possible after it is harvested to avoid re-wetting and to reduce grain breakage. When the rice grains have their final clean, they are sent to a mill. During the milling process, the hulls are removed from the raw grain to reveal whole brown rice, which may then sometimes be milled further to remove the bran layer, resulting in white rice. Driving the roads around Magalang reveals the real culture of the area. The old lady we stopped and filmed winnowing rice had a ready smile for our camera. The smile we received when we gave her a few goodies was unforgettable. Magalang is a city not far north of Yogyakarta, and while we were there we stayed in the Atria Hotel. It was a hotel where the general manager was interested in our filming adventures.
Nice meeting you, Pak.
My wife Novia.
Chandra, nice meeting you, Miss Novia. Thank you.
Good enough.
Okay. I had my previous general manager is a New Zealander.
Chandra became interested when I asked one of the staff if we could film breakfast that was provided. That staff member got the okay from the catering and service manager, Herman Raris. Of course, he was interested in what we were doing, and we had the pleasure of his company over breakfast. We have stayed at a lot of hotels around the world, but never have we had the pleasure of the incredible service we were provided with at Atria.
So what do I do there?
Boil the noodle and put vegetable all together with egg.
The facilities were immaculate. The staff were impeccable, friendly, helpful, and a pleasure to speak to.
This porridge rice.
Made from rice, is it?
Boil and put together with this.
What do you do?
Take rice and then put in the bowl, and then put all of together in one bowl.
And what do you call that?
Porridge.
Oh, yeah.
Porridge.
The food at the breakfast banquet was a sight to behold. The breakfast setting was laid out in a way that impressed. It was a spread the likes of which I have never seen before. It was a mix of Indonesian and Western. The indigenous culture of Indonesia and influences from the foreign invaders that history shows inhabited the country over hundreds of years, and the fact that the country was on the route of the spice trade has made the food culture here varied and mouth-watering. The Middle East, China and Europe have all left their mark on the wonderful array of food we were treated to at a breakfast banquet at the Atria Hotel. The banquet was sumptuous, varied and delicious. For us to have tried each dish, unfortunately, would have taken a month or more. This is the art of hand-pulling noodles. To Different countries have different styles. To get the noodle dough to be flexible and stretchy is partly due to the mixture of water and flour with salt and the continual kneading and twirling of the dough. The idea is to stretch the dough like a rope, bring the two ends together while twirling, and then stretch the dough to its original length. Depending on humidity, sometimes it might take 10 minutes to twirl, or sometimes 15 or 20. These noodles are being made to boil, so that means he will only stretch them 4 or 5 times. Today's exhibition of the art of making hand-pulled noodles is a splendid display of craftsmanship by a highly skilled practitioner. The skills of the chefs and kitchen staff at Atria Hotel are reliant on them being able to source fresh vegetables and fruits. The area around Magalang is renowned for its agricultural and horticultural production. The markets here, in this case a wholesale market, were stocked with some of the best fruits and veggies one could wish for. Seasonal variances in climate dictate what can be grown in this area, so where supply wasn't available locally, it was imported from other countries or districts.
Supplier from Bali.
Dari
Oh,
Bali,
iya.
Jawa Timur, nanti bawa ke Jogja, habis itu ke agen-agen kecil.
For the little distributor around Jogja.
Halo bos.
Sini begini Pak.
Dari Jawa Timur.
I'm from Jawa Timur.
Oh iya.
Dari Banyuwangi.
Banyuwangi.
Banyuwangi. Makan ada dulu ya.
Pundi Pak? Panenan saking pundi nih? Mundilan. Oh, from my place, Mundilan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So different when you're filming in a place like Indonesia. The people are so proud to have you come in and basically be nosy. They're just proud that you want to show interest, and they're very proud of what they do.
Peaches Pak. Peaches. Peaches itu ya kayak sini kayak ledung Pak.
Oh ya, ledung itu. Untuk buah dalam.
Kayak begini dijual begini.
Ini kan dari New Zealand. Banyuwangi.
Banyuwangi.
From Banyuwangi.
Ya. Ini ada Banyuwangi.
Reading ya.
Oh ya.
See? Very expensive in Indonesia. Ya kan? Telung kilo Bu.
Where from? Rice.
Ini bekas tanaman padi. Padinya diambil, kotorannya buat ini.
These are papaya, also known as pawpaw. Originating in Central America, the papaya found its new home in Indonesia, probably as a result of traders bringing in plants because of Indonesia being on the spice route hundreds of years ago. Papaya plants grow in 3 sexes, male, female, and hermaphrodite. The male produces only pollen, never fruit. The female will produce small inedible fruits unless pollinated. The hermaphrodite can self-pollinate since its flowers contain both male stamens and female ovaries. Almost all commercial papaya orchards contain only hermaphrodites. Papayas, which are high in vitamins A and C and calcium, are often used as fresh fruit in salads and desserts, as well as prepared in juices and jams or dried. Some Southeast Asian dishes call for the unripe fruits to be cooked and used as vegetables. Papayas produce an enzyme, papain, which aids digestion and is used to tenderize meat. Papaya is highly perishable with a shelf life of 4 to 6 days after harvest under tropical conditions, but up to 3 weeks at low temperature storage. Papaya grows all year round, and a good crop like this will yield 60 tonnes per hectare. Another interesting and delicious crop we came across at the market was shellac.
This place never ceases to interest me. There's a surprise around every corner, and we've come up to an area that Norris brought us where there's industry of orchards that grow shellac, and we'll take you through the orchard and we'll show you what they are. But it's interesting just talking to the owner here, and they send a lot of them into China by air freight. Well, this is a shellac orchard. The trees have incredible protection on them, the spikes, but when you walk through here, everything is set out so they've got their levels worked out, because it's got to be irrigated, and it's all irrigated by natural gravity, and the trenches are built along, and then there'll be a trench running out between each tree. But this is a huge area. What we'll do, we'll take out in the drone just to give you an idea just how massive these orchards are. And this area was wiped out 5 years ago by the volcano in the eruption, and so any of the trees you see here are 5 years old or younger, and the fruit is just it's exceptional. It doesn't taste like anything we've got in New Zealand, really. It's something that's quite unique.
Also known as snake fruit due to the reddish brown scaly fruit. Native to Indonesia, shellac is a palm tree and is grown widely in the area around Magelang. Commercial crops of shellac thrive in this area and are exported mainly to the Chinese market. The fruit is about 2 to 3 months old, and then we cut it, so it makes it easy to harvest. After we cut the fruit, we prune the tree back. If there was still a branch here, they can't grow up again. If we want a big harvest, we must thin the fruit. If there is too many fruit, the fruits will not grow big. How many kilos in one tree? One tree can get 2 to 3 kilos of fruit in one harvest. The trees have fearsome spikes for protection. The fruit are about the size and shape of a ripe fig with a distinct tip. The pulp is edible. The fruit can be peeled by pinching the tip, which should cause the skin to slough off so it can be pulled away. The fruit inside consists of 3 lobes with 2 larger ones, or even all 3, containing a large inedible seed. The lobes resemble and have the consistency of large peeled garlic cloves. The taste is usually sweet and acidic, with a strong astringent edge, but its apple-like texture can vary from very dry and crumbly to moist and crunchy. To say that there is a surprise around every corner is not an understatement.
Ini namanya sirsat. Kalau orang sini namanya nangka Belanda. Ini nangka dari negeri Belanda sana. Ini mungkin udah tua dan kalau masih muda masih hijau sekali. Ini bintik-bintiknya kalau udah megar, udah mekar, ini baru udah siap-siap untuk dikonsumsi. Tapi ini masih keras dan dia matangnya udah empuk. Ya.
If it is immaculately engineered vegetable growing terraces that are tended meticulously and are a great sight to see, then the road from Magelang up to the southern slopes of Mount Sumbing is the place to go. The landscape has been crafted by farmers over hundreds of years, and as we rise in altitude, the crops change from predominantly rice to melons, tobacco, onions, chili, cassava and scattered banana trees. This is land utilisation at its very best, and it is all done without the aid of machinery. Water supply, the most important aspect of terraced farming, is provided from rivers and mountain streams. Irrigation flows through the same complex canals and riverways that are centuries old. The different levels of terraces allow water to flow successively down each level. Further along the road we stopped at a mushroom farm. The increase in altitude as we climbed the slopes of Mount Sumbing brought the temperatures and humidity to the right levels to grow oyster mushrooms.
Because they're very fortunate with the climate in Indonesia, and it's an area that's reasonably high altitude here, so they managed to get just the right temperature with nature without adding any heat, and that's what's critical to get the mushrooms to grow like they are. Well, this is amazing.
As we climbed upwards, the temperature dropped from a sweltering 36 degrees to a more bearable 30 or slightly below. With the temperature change came the clouds, and my attempts to fly the drone high up the mountain were becoming difficult and dangerous. Flying in cloud at high altitude, where the air is thinning out, makes the operating of any aircraft extremely difficult. Power is considerably reduced, and in the case of a high-tech drone, the communication from the aircraft to the pilot can be jeopardized. With no communication and a lack of power, the aircraft could disappear any moment to never be seen again. At this point in the flight, a decision needed to be made. A decision to end the flight and lose the opportunity to get the footage we needed, or attempt to navigate down through the clouds without losing communication with the aircraft and film the wonderful country we had glimpses of ahead. It was decision time. Turn back or push on ahead. With what we could see ahead, I was swayed, and upward and onwards it was to be. Finding a passage ahead under the clouds, the country that unfolded beneath the drone was nothing short of breathtaking. Flying low to get under the clouds, relying on nothing more than a radio signal to keep control, was about as frightening an experience as I have had. And I've flown in helicopters hunting wild game in the New Zealand mountains most of my life. As the drone powered its way up the mountain, the cloud layer eventually thinned until we were flying in clean air. We flew, the better the scenery got. The scenes that unfolded below were awe-inspiring. I was flying a drone where, according to the locals, none had flown before. Almost like magic, as the scenery bloomed, the sun broke through the clouds, and it felt like I had arrived at the greatest drone flying country I would ever experience.
get some wonderful experiences as a filmmaker, but up here, just awesome. The people are so proud, I guess, that the work they do to cultivate this country, to grow crops up on this steep hill country, because you've got to understand they get heavy rainfalls in the rainy season, and we're up halfway up a mountain. And to terrace this land like they do is one thing physically, but to engineer it the way they have and to successfully grow crops as well as they do is another, to stop erosion and have it watered naturally and have everything growing as well as it does up here. It's unbelievable. They do grow different crops up here, of course. They grow crops that won't grow down on the low country. When we stopped at a mushroom farm down below there, that was because we'd come up to a certain altitude where the level of temperature was just right, and they could grow them without any heating. And once we get up here, they can grow other crops. They grow broccoli and they grow a lot of spring onions up here, tobacco. But it's just so interesting, and the people are just so damn beautiful. They have to be the nicest people I've ever had the privilege of filming and learning their way of life. It is just fantastic.
High up on the slopes of Mount Sumbing, tobacco and onions were two of the main crops. The work here is nearly all done by hand. The country is steep and all the produce is brought out to the road by hand, and then often it is hauled the same way to where it is packaged. The farmers here have a natural ability to handle heavy loads. It is what they have done for centuries. There was something special about the people up on this mountain, and it wasn't just their ability to work so hard. They were amongst the happiest people I have ever spent time with.
44 kilos.
Well, that's about 44 kilos, 100 pounds. And you see these guys, that man's only half the size of me. He makes it look twice as easy. There's something wrong there.
These workers were sorting onions for the market in Yogyakarta, about 60 k's from here. Tobacco is grown extensively in this area, and having Nori Nori as our guide, we were able to learn how it was all done.
How long will that take to grow?
6 months.
Oh, yep.
6 months.
And then that takes, what, 6 months before it is ready?
Yeah.
And then what do they sell it to a man, another business?
Yeah, export to Bremen, German.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. After this flower,
Yeah.
bunga, take 1 or 2 to left.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
After put the house maybe 3 or 4 days. After to cut,
Dry. Yeah.
cut to dry.
Yeah. And then it goes. So-
Yeah.
After the harvest, the tobacco leaves are hung to dry under cover for a few days, and then they are shredded and placed on frames in the open to continue the drying process. Low real cigarette prices, population growth, rising household incomes, and mechanisation of the tobacco industry have contributed to a sharp increase in tobacco consumption in Indonesia since the 1970s. Tobacco in Indonesia became 40% more affordable between 1980 and 1998. One of the additives used in tobacco, cengkeh, or as we know it, cloves, can be found growing wild.
Harvest become get the flower. If we got the flower, it's rubbish.
Oh, too late.
Too late. So must be harvest like this. Yeah.
Kalau sudah
Oh, iya.
mekar,
Uh-huh.
nggak kepake.
Now this tree behind us is cengkeh.
Cengkeh.
Yes.
Cengkeh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, we'll go back a couple of steps. We saw the tobacco getting dried on the side of the road, and Nobia said, "Does it smell like tobacco?" I said, "No, it smells terrible. It's a horrible smell. Nothing like tobacco." And what happens, of course, tobacco gets dried and processed, and it gets a lot of other things added to it. And one of them is the fruit of this tree. And this is what we've come to have a look at now. That's a tree there, and just have a look at those. You see them? Now I'll just flick you back to where we saw on the side of the road about 30 kilometres ago some mats on the side of the road. Now those mats were drying this product here, and that would go obviously to the manufacturers or the processors that do that process the tobacco. That's the fruit or the flower there that they actually use.